Lake Nona has a institute for CEOs, and one of the things they bring in the CEOs, Procter and Gamble, these big CEOs come in, and they teach them to make a gratitude list. At the end of each day, they say, take 8 minutes and write down what you're thankful for this day, and to take that time and write it down. Well, it's good for the CEOs, might be good for us too. There's a Protestant pastor, John Yopes, he said that actually 3 gratitude lists we should keep. The first list is the list you'd expect, the good things. You know, what you'd say around the Thanksgiving Day table this afternoon. You're thankful for marriage or children. I hope you're thankful for your children. Job, friends, church, your pastor, you know, social, parochial vicar, deacon, all the important things here. Your pets, music, just the lovely things of life. You're just grateful for them. And writing these down, saying around the table or saying to others is wonderful, but also writing down, they show it gives you better sleep, better blood pressure. It's a good thing. It changes your outlook at the day. And so we make this gratitude list out of joy. But there's another list, the second list. These are the things that were hard, but turned out later to be a blessing. And this is in the category of whatever doesn't kill you will make you stronger, gratitude list. I was talking to a friend yesterday, she's my age, and she's recently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, the fast kind. And this is not something she would have asked for or even wished for, but she said, I asked her, is there any blessings coming out of this, Nancy? And she said, well, I really appreciate the good days. I appreciate the small things, not she didn't before, but she really appreciates it more. So there's some good coming out of this. It could be losing a job, but finding a better one. Hard thing that you're grateful for now. Or it could be an addiction that has brought you to your knees before God, and so you're grateful for that. And the Bible tells us God will make all things work out for the good, for our salvation. He doesn't say just the good things will work out for the good, but all things, even no matter what, they will work for good. So this gratitude list is out of gratitude. In hindsight, those things that we look back on, now they have blessings. God has blessed us through them. But there's a third list, and this is the list of, it's really hard to make. But it's the hard things that are still hard things, and no good has come out of them. This is the category of why did bad things happen to good people? It's just senseless. A son's mental illness, what's the good of that? Or you're laid off age 55 and your future looks bleak. We say during Mass, let us give thanks to the Lord. It is right and just. It is our duty and our salvation always and everywhere to give thanks. But always and everywhere? Thanksgiving Day was officially set as fourth Thursday of November by Abraham Lincoln when he was president. And it was during the Civil War. This is a really bad time. His own life, he had many enemies. He's up for election next year. He knew if he was not elected, the country would well be divided and the union be permanently split. Their military victories, so far so bad. The South was winning. The only victory had been at Vicksburg. He had called for a national day of fasting in March of 1863, but now in November to call for a day of Thanksgiving. This is definitely on that third list. That Civil War itself, something to be thankful for. We know it does. It kept the Union together. It changed us from being the United States of America are to the United States of America is. And it ended slavery, chattel slavery, terrible slavery. But racism persists in our country. Our bishops in the United States, they just published a pastoral letter called Open Wide Our Hearts. And they wrote, all too often, Hispanics and African Americans, for example, face discrimination in hiring, housing, educational opportunities, incarceration. Racial profiling frequently targets Hispanics for selective immigration, enforcement practices, and African Americans for suspected criminal activity. And they continue. There's also growing fear and harassment of persons from majority Muslim countries. Extreme national ideologies are feeding the American public discourse with xenophobic rhetoric that instigates fear against foreigners, immigrants, and refugees. Bishops also talked at length about the Native Americans, that experienced genocide at the hands of the Europeans, and still to this day suffer great poverty. Racism is alive and well in our country, definitely on the third list here. Putting these things on this list, making this list even at all, is a leap of faith. The things on the first list, those are out of joy, and the second list out of gratitude. They were negative at one time, they were hard, but now there's blessings with it. But the things with no hope, putting them on the list is a leap of faith. You put them on these hard things on your gratitude list, not out of joy, not out of gratitude, but out of faith. Out of faith in God's goodness. That's what Jesus did. Every time we gather around his altar, we remember his passion. And then he knew his suffering and death was imminent, terrible torture and execution. Yet on the night he was betrayed, he took bread, said the blessing, gave thanks, and broke it. And then when supper was ended, he took the chalice and gave thanks. The Lord Jesus offered thanks to God the Father for the very things that promised that he'd have a horrible end. He would be broken. His life would be poured out. His flesh and bone. He would suffer on the cross. In giving thanks, he entered his passion with thanks. But he did not enter alone. He took with him the confidence in the Father's goodness. He took that faith to hell and back. And in his resurrection became forevermore the instrument, the embodiment of God's goodness in which we place our faith. That hard thing, the cross, that no good could come ever out of, has, by the mercy of God, become the number one on the list for the church. Let us today give thanks and praise to God.